The super high rollers are often doing stuff that it's very hard for the general poker population to understand. I know I sometimes don't get what's going on. And let me tell you, there's some plays in the hand that we're going to show you today that I definitely don't get, and I don't know if I agree with. And that's probably why it was suggested by Lengyel Gabor on Twitter, because there's some interesting stuff that's going on in this hand.
Yeah, that is for sure. Now, I will say this, Lengyel Gabor, and everyone else out there who wants to suggest a hand for the breakdown, just use our Twitter address right there. Send us a hand, include a YouTube whatever, a link, a timestamp, all the stuff. That way we can see the hand, and then we'll give you credit for it.
Speaking of links, if you check out our Twitter, we are often tweeting the Nitrogen Sports Poker link that you can use to sign up for Nitrogen Sports Poker. And when you use the link, you get access to our monthly tournament. It happens the last Sunday of every month. It's what we're calling the best value in poker that repeats over and over because it's absurd. They guarantee 1,000 buy-ins. We've never even gotten more than 100 players. They've been doing it for over a year. They're terrible at business. Take advantage of them. It's like there's 13 buy-ins every time that you buy in. It's crazy. There's no better value that I can think of.
It's the BIV. It's a BIV, the best iterated value in poker.
That's incredible.
It's a BIV-VIP.
Yeah, it is. And Nitrogen is a Bitcoin-only poker site, and they don't mess around. So when you withdraw your money after you bink that tournament, they give it to you in 90 minutes. That sounds pretty great. Get on Nitrogen, get you some poker. Let's get to the hand.
For his opening here. Deep Peter is gonna be very sticky from his big blinds, as he should. You have money invested. And that's a really good flop for 8-7. He is going to continuation bet this. These guys have like 35 big blinds. It's a flop. They can meet with a lot of resistance from the big blinds. Deep Peter's going to call pre-flop with a lot of hands that connect here, like he has now. So think about hands like 7-6, 8-6. DeVoris has the ace of spades, and that means he can bet any spade. Ace, king, queen, jack, or 10, so. Deep Peters is not going to give him the chance to make his life tough on future streets. And he check raises the flop. I assume with the intention of calling. Now, those backdoors still count for Daniel DeVoris. He's gonna call. Look at that. In this instance, he's right. That's the best hand. That is a complete brick. And now, Deep Peters has a decision to make. Did my opponent call me with a hand like ace-king or ace-queen? Maybe a hand like, you know, pocket eights, pocket nines, pocket tens that he could blow him off of. Or am I getting trapped here?
Hello? Oh.
Deep Peters checks. DeVoris using a time bank chip. Problem with checking is that if D Peters has a hand like the one you currently see, you give that hand a free look at a 30% equity stake in the pot. He's gonna check. That's a break. D Peters is gonna have to bet at this to win it. Wow. That is aggressive. That's an overbet. David Peters. There's definitely some hands that D Peters could check raise on the flop and then slow play on future streets. I'm thinking specifically about some fives, of course. 6-5, Jack 5. This would be one of the biggest calls in the tournament for me, personally, and I think you guys would agree. Oh my god. Oh, I can't even imagine what it must be like for David Peters right now. Sweating when you see your opponent grab those chips. Grab the single chip to put in a call. Took it back. Looks like Daniel DeVoris has about 3 of those plaques left to get some extra time. Oh my god, what a call. That is ridiculous. What a call.
Well, here we are with Daniel DeVoris with the monster double up. We are here. The question is, should we be here? How did we get here? These are things that philosophers have asked for millions of years.
These are universal questions.
But in the context of just this hand, let's go back a little bit in time, which is another thing philosophers would love to do but can't, and talk about the flop to start, where David Peters check raises the open-ended straight draw. Should he be check raising here?
I think it's okay to do this. He's definitely going to have some bluffs here because, you know, you just have to if you're going to check raise. You can't only have value. He does have some value, obviously. He's got Jack 5 suited, Jack 6 suited, 6-5, sets of 5, sets of 6s, and maybe once in a blue moon sets of Jacks for value. So he's going to have some bluffs also. The bluffs that make sense are flush draws and straight draws and things like that. So it's okay to have this in there, but you can't check raise all of your draws. That would be way too many. So Peters just has to pick a few of them. He picked this one.
He picked this one probably because it's one of the weaker ones, I guess.
I think so.
As DeVoris, you can't know which draws he's check raising. And I don't know if you should really be check raising this board against the under the gun range that much anyway. You don't have a range advantage. And Jonathan did just list the value combos, but there aren't that many, right? It doesn't really add up to much. Jack 5, Jack 6 suited, 5-6 off, sets of 5, sets of 6s. That is not a lot of combos. That's a bit problematic, which is, I guess, probably why DeVoris decides to call. But from DeVoris' perspective, DeVoris himself can have a lot better hands than ace-king to call with. And having the ace of spades is not actually good here.
Yeah, because you want Peters to have a flush draw, because then you're beating the nut flush draw. That would be good. By having the ace of spades, he can have that. That cuts down on some of his flush combinations and thus some of his bluff combinations, and he has more value. Problematic. So yeah, this is already a questionable call. It's weird that he decides to bet call here. I guess he's just thinking Peters just doesn't have enough value and he's got too many draws. I call.
But now we're set up in a situation where DeVoris is 150K behind and there's 119 in the pot, and he's sitting there with ace high and 2 backdoor draws.
Yeah.
It's not an ideal situation at all.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right, so we get to the turn, and here is where my favorite play in the hand happens. I think it's like a sneaky play that you wouldn't think about much. You're thinking, no, the coolest play is DeVoris calling the river. You're wrong.
No, I think it's cool. I agree with you guys.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Don't tell me don't tell me how to feel.
How dare you? No, I think the coolest play is David Peters checking the turn, which seems like something that's not that cool at all. But really, when you think about it, David Peters has 8 high, and traditional logic would say this is a spot where you have to continue bluffing. You have no showdown value, you didn't improve, and maybe you can get your opponent to fold. Sounds great. But Peters knows that his only value combinations are those same combos he had on the flop, which are the 2 pairs and sets and stuff. And guess what? Combinatorially, those just got diminished by a lot by that 5 pairing, and Dvorak knows that, and Peters knows that Dvorak knows that. It's a great time to give up.
Also, to be clear, like Dvorak has, as Grant was saying, barely more than a pot-sized bet left, and he just called a check raise on the flop. He's usually going with his hand, and Peters knows this now, right? So, like, this is not a scare card, this 5 pairing. Like, either Peters was already beating an overpair, or he wasn't, and it doesn't change right now. So this is another just really good reason to give up, let alone the fact that your value combinations actually shrink.
Right, but Dvorak checks back. He's just hoping that Peters has a draw that's going to miss again, and he's going to get to either win at showdown or make a hero decision, which I guess he ends up doing.
I think that's my coolest play, is the check back by Dvorak.
Stop being a douche, man.
Whatevs.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, let's get to the river.
All right.
Where Peters hits the 3 of spades, because this is a card where he was giving up on the turn, and now he's thinking, okay, this is a card that I think I kind of have to go for it on.
I mean, I agree. Like, you have the other draw. Like, you have a draw. This is the most likely draw that you have. You actually have the 8 of spades in your hand, which is great because you block spades a little bit, which is good. Also, you have the 7 in your hand, meaning you block the nut straight.
Which Dvorak never has that, so blocking it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're right. That's fair, but it's plausible for you to have it, I guess, but it's plausible anyway. But ultimately, the point is, like, this is what, like, when you check raise the flop, and you get this card, this is exactly the card you're hoping to come on the turn so you can bluff the turn, right? If you don't actually improve and make the best hand on the turn. So I don't see any world where David Peters isn't going to bluff this river.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and David Peters has a lot of value combos here. He not only has flushes, but the way Dvorak played it, sure, he has a couple flushes, but usually, in my mind, he's going to 3-bet his flush draws or bet the turn with his flush draws when checked to. So Peters can feel confident that if he has a straight like deuce 4 or 4-7 suited, which he very well might play this way because he played 7-8 this way, he could go for value with those hands as well. So Peters has those combos. He has all the flush combos. It's really kind of a Shangri-La of combos for value now for David Peters, including all the ones he had on the flop, by the way.
That's absolutely right. And also, and the few times that Dvorak actually does have the ace-king of spades here or something like that, which is possible for him to show up with, of course, his stack size makes it not a big deal for Peters when Peters does have a straight to move him in anyway. You can reasonably think, well, we're just getting it in anyway if he's got me beat.
Yeah, you want to get called by the overpairs that are going to check back, right?
Right.
So you got to do it anyway.
Right.
So those are things that should be going through Dvorak's head before he decides to make this call, which seems ambitious, Jonathan.
Hard to disagree, Grant. Now, he has the ace of spades in his hand, which from, and the flop, that was kind of a bad thing to have. Now it's a good thing to have again because we block the nut flush. That's cool.
Yeah. But
of course, there are a lot of other combinations Peters, from the big blind especially, can have here, right? If he was in middle position, we can cut down on his flush combinations by so much. But Peters has almost every suited combination of spades, I think, in the big blind.
He does. Now, he might not check raise all of them, but as Dvorak, we don't know which ones he's doing that with. It doesn't matter. He's pretty flush heavy. He's got a lot more flushes than Dvorak has. So Peters is telling a good story in our mind, right?
Yeah,
so that's a reason to fold as Dvorak. Another reason to fold as Dvorak is the hand that we have as Dvorak. We have ace-king. We thought that might be too low in the distribution on the flop to call the check raise there. How about now on the river where it's for our tournament life? We have such better hands in our range as Dvorak. How about any overpair, any jack? We have a ton of great hands that we can call with. I don't know if we should even be calling with 2 red aces in this spot. Maybe that's not even good enough. We need the ace of spades in our hand to call. I'm not really sure, but I know that I want an overpair at least, or a jack, not just ace-king.
I mean, in fairness to Dvorak, all these hands that Grant just named are also bluff catchers, right? Just as ace-king is. Now, once in a while, ace-king is losing to a bluff and aces is not.
Right. What if Peters has 3-4?
Right.
Think about that.
But mostly they play the same on the river as a bluff catcher, most of the time. However, to Grant's point, you can't go with all your bluff catchers every time. You will lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
It will not work out. So Dvorak decides to call here. What in the world could be part of his decision making?
That's where I'm lost, because what Jonathan is referencing is distribution. Where does he fall in his distribution? And as I mentioned, he has so many better hands here. He falls maybe at the very bottom of his distribution. He might literally not have a worse hand than this in his entire range. Is it possible that that's the case?
He probably has ace-queen with the ace of spades.
Yeah,
he has ace-king with the ace of spades.
Fine. Then he has so many paired hands. I don't see why we're choosing this hand to call when Peters clearly can have flushes and straights, has a good range going here, has a good story that he's telling. I don't understand any of it. I don't get why the call happens. I know it looks great. I think it's a bad call.
It seems like a bad call from the outside if you're just taking gameplay factors into consideration. If there's other things in play, maybe it changes it a little bit. For example, if Dvorak has a very clear tell or live read, fair enough.
But it's David Peters. It's unlikely, right?
It seems not super likely. David Peters is one of the most accomplished and best players in the world. Doesn't mean to say, though, that he doesn't have physical tells.
Sure,
Maybe he
it's
does.
possible.
Maybe Dvorak is one of those super guys who can read that stuff and read it correctly. That does seem like quite a stretch, I will admit.
Yeah, so in the end, I think neither of us really liked the way Dvorak played the hand
Yeah.
overall. And he doubled up, which is great, but I think Peters actually played the hand a little better than he did.
So ultimately, we were not huge fans of how Dvorak decided to play this. We admit, though, this is a super high roller situation, and perhaps there's things we're not taking into consideration or just getting wrong. What do you guys think? Do you think you're on the side of the poker guys, or are you on the side of Daniel Dvorak? I know his last name. It's close enough. What do you think about these decisions that he makes, specifically to call both on flop and river with just ace-king high here? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Let us know in the comments. We definitely want to see what you have to say.
And this guy, Dvorak, he, I guess, plays kind of different, weird poker because we have a different hand we did with him against Sam Greenwood where, once again, he's making a decision that we don't fully understand. You can click right up here to check it out.
Yes, definitely do. Now, if you want to hear us get way deeper into this and really kick around Dvorak's decisions in a much more detailed and intense way, you got to check out our podcast. That's the Breakdown Poker Podcast with the Poker Guys. That's the name. And it's available on all your favorite podcast apps.
And if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel.